Hey, gangsters. So I'm out with some improv thoughts and tips, and one announcement, which is there's no class this Saturday, May 11th. I have a conflict, and it's a long story, but there's no class this Saturday. We will pick it back up on Saturday, May 18th, and every Saturday thereafter. So, I want to talk to you about some improv ideas. I took two classes over the last couple weeks, both from very experienced improvisers who've really dedicated their lives to the art of improv, been doing it for 20 years. So they're worth paying attention to. Um, the first class was all about object work. It was just specifics of doing realistic and grounded object work, daily tasks that you're doing in your normal life, whether it's brushing your teeth, taking a shower, changing a tire on a car, putting on your makeup. Maybe you're building a model airplane. Who knows what it is? But the instructor was underscoring the significance of being really engaged and really believable in that task. Now, I think it's the hallmark of an experienced improviser that can be so engaged and specific in doing object work um, that they could actually not be paying attention to their scene partners and whatever else is going around them. If they're really engaged in that activity, the audience is going to be engaged in that activity. And I know we're told to listen to what our scene partner is saying and respond to them. But I will say this, if you're that engaged in your object work to where you're not paying attention to your scene partner, they're going to come to you and they're going to figure it out and they're going to get engaged with what you're doing. If you make it important and believable, so will everybody else. And what do we typically do? We start out with kind of some half-baked object work, and then someone says something and we drop it and we turn to them, and then we get into what some call a talking head scene. This is part of the art form, learning to be dedicated and committed to something that we're doing, and letting everything else fall into place. Now, the second class was taught by Chris Alvarado. He is quite a performer and quite has some great philosophy about improv. And one of the things, if you've ever taken a class with him, is he'll say, "Make me care. You're about to get up there and do an improv scene. Make me give a shizzle. Like, let's go. We're not here to dilly-dally. We're up here performing." So the question becomes then, how do we get people to care? Well, generally speaking, that is creating a dynamic emotional relationship between the players on the stage. So if it's a two-person scene, we want to have a dynamic emotional relationship between these two with some stakes. And how can we pull the levers, push the buttons, and create some dynamic emotional reaction? So that's the answer to that. How do you make people care? Have it a highly emotional scene. I liked what Chris said about, so he had this term, because I always ask coaches, like, hey, what are the constituents of a good scene? We often hear, get the who, what, and where out. Who are we? Where are we? What are we doing? Chris had this premise in this last class about taking the first thing said, and not even the first thing said, but how was it said, and what was the body language, and reading into that and maybe diving deep into that, as opposed to having a scene that crosses a lot of terrain and we're inventing and bringing up a lot of stuff. Maybe we're just going real deep into the very, very, very first thing, and we're going to explore that dynamic a little bit more in the next class. Okay, so where was I? Anyways, we're doing this improv class, and there's an odd number of people. So Chris ended up doing a scene with one of the more beginning improvisers, and his first initiating line was, "Hey, I don't love you. I just like you." And I want you to think about that, about what that creates at the top of a scene. That is the first line out, and in that kind of thought processes of "make me care," well, you've got that's a pretty dynamic line to open a scene up with, forcing the two players to address this situation and kind of fill in, okay, what are we going to do from here? Now, some would say, well, hey, we don't want to premeditate anything. We want to come out and we want to discover everything spontaneously. We don't want to come in with plot. We don't want to drive or steer a scene. All of that's true. But coming in with a line that makes that draws a lot of brings a lot of information. These people know each other. Um, they're in a relationship that things are probably getting dicey. Like we're going to have something pretty serious to deal with here. That line is loaded with a lot of things, but there's still a lot of information to fill out. Now, the other thing Chris talks about is um, not trying to be funny. He specifically, when you take a class with him, he says, you're not trying to be funny. Don't be funny. In fact, don't even try to be interesting. Just try to be natural, authentic, organic, and real. And you'll see many teachers ask, hey, play it real. Just play it like yourself. Try to bring in some real emotions, some real feelings, and some real thoughts to the dynamic. We don't want to deny the fictitious world we've brought in, but we want to bring in some realism and some of our authenticity, some of your real thoughts, your real wisdom philosophy. Now, you can pick a character or a point of view if that person happens to be an elitist, let's say. You can play that. You can play an elitist point of view, but you're still going to be informing that from your life experience. Okay, now I'm rambling. Chris had this concept that I really wanted to get across to you guys. As I'm asking him, hey, what stage of the scene are we kind of pulling levers and pushing buttons to get this, the who, what, and where, and the emotional dynamic between the two people? And he used the term, I dive into people's chests pretty quickly. So he says he'll let the scene establish a few things, maybe the who, what, and where are we, what are we doing, and where are we doing it? And then he's going to dive into their chest. And I love that idea because we always talk about being in an emotionally charged scene with our scene partner. We're not talking about an object. We're not talking about someone that's not there. We're talking about the two people on stage. And we want to have it out between these guys. So he used the term diving into people's chests. So think about that. And as we're doing our work and we're doing scene work, we want to try to train our brain to go, okay, I've got to get engaged with this person emotionally, which kind of follows another improv tip you'll hear from people, which is you already know the person. Like you're walking into an improv scene and these are people that already have a relationship and probably a long relationship, and we're going to be dealing with a heightened emotional situation in their life. It's not the only way to do it, but it's something we want to be trying to produce consistently. I think that's about it. We're going to work on those things on May 18th on Saturday, so I hope to see you there. Email me if you have any questions about this stuff. Hope to catch you in class later.